Here at the town hall, November 14th.
Along with the draft of our audit. You want to look at it? Yes.
As well as comment cards.
Yep, and the comment card if you want to, what?
Do I need to fill one out?
No, I don't want to sign there.
If I have a comment?
I like it.
What's
I like it.
I don't want to sit in front.
it's 6:33?
It doesn't go in the
I
box?
have the other catch video.
If you want to speak, fill one out.
That's my only input. Yeah, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut.
All right, I got a word on that. Everybody heard that?
I saw Zim.
Yeah. That'd be nice.
What's the day today?
The 14th.
I don't even know what day it is. How is it the 14th already?
Time flies when you're having fun.
Isn't that the truth?
Track of time, I'm retired. I can't keep up the days of the week anymore.
It's all, we can.
Jerry,
No.
this is at Carl's house back there.
Oh, really? But
Belinda wanted the clock, so I made one. 22 inches.
that's cool.
She's gonna hang it in there, she said.
That's real.
Carl busted the beads off of it, they're just, his beads are just hot glued on.
Man, my back is so sore.
That chair's too close for me, boys. See? Trying to do another copy yet? Did you get another copy yet?
He's saying steal third. Steal third. Run home.
Yeah, you can just give us a
Slide.
Thank you.
This can be the safe sign.
Not that I need it. I just- Yeah.
We had to cut the top off, we right after.
Madam Treese, you have 1 minute, and the next announcement will be on 10-second countdown.
Okay. This is my final one. Because I only got one more minute. You got nothing
I like them digs.
She's dragging.
There's Mrs. Claus over there.
Right. And it will be made and dragging. Yeah.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Madam Treese, it is time.
All right, let's call the meeting to order. First thing we have, thank you. Is,
You want to say?
is there anybody who would like to volunteer to do prayer tonight?
I'll pray. You guys don't mind bowing your heads, take your hats off and pray with me, please. Father, we do humbly come to your throne of grace with an understanding that we need your grace. We thank you for the gift of your grace, and may we bestow that same gift upon others. Father, we cry out, heal our town. Father, bring hope back where there's hopelessness. We thank you for the leadership that you provided. Father, may we always be respectful of that leadership as they guide and direct us. Father, may we be found faithful following you. We pray this in your precious name. Amen.
Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Now we'll do the roll call. Russell Meek Senior. Dale. Teresa Granger present. St. Patrick. Don Severino. The first thing we have is to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Do I hear a second to approve the agenda?
I'll second the motion.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? No one? All right, and then we have the bills to look at. Has everyone looked at the bills? Do you have any questions?
Well, these aren't really all the bills, this is just a few of them. It's just a one page, 10 or 15 line.
Were there any other bills that we've received? Or is this what we have currently?
We received the one for Gator Work for the computer, and we got one today from, I'll have to look at the file. And then we had Douglas and Douglas. We got the monthly bill for them.
Actually, it's kind of an incomplete financial report. A real financial report would have the incoming spending for the last 30 days, would have the spending and income for the fiscal year. In addition, it'll have all the checks that are written and the numbers, like a registry, a check registry. And it would also have the water plant account in addition to the general fund account. And that's a financial report. This is just
The
not
bills
much.
to be paid?
In other words, you can't take a decision with this here.
This is a list of the bills.
Okay.
And we're asking about the bills.
Okay, well,
And I've been attending these meetings for a little over 6 years, and none of those reports you just described has ever been listed at any of the meetings that I've been to in the last 6 years.
okay.
So this, obviously, it's not a practice that the town has occurred in the past.
Okay, well, what's this? This is from one of the meetings, I got several of those. See, that's the way it is supposed to be, that's the way it's been done. How are we supposed to understand what's going on with just a list of the bills?
I'm guessing your participation in the process through the month, you can see what's going on.
Pardon?
If you participated as a council person for the town, you probably see what's going on.
And
Versus your only participation to the town is show up to the meeting. What other participation did you do?
And,
That's right.
so I don't see how anybody can make a decision, pass a financial report with just this. We have to have information, that's what we're supposed to do. How can we have any kind of oversight when we don't have any information?
Did you have a question?
I think that what we're used to
Mhm.
is having the balance of everything, okay? So we, like the water, what we did with water and the balance of what was in that account and what was the balance in this account. That's what we were used to.
I don't know if that was the correct way,
I don't know what the correct way is, but I think that's
what you're used to.
what
And
we
that,
was
and
used
that
to.
is going to be coming. Helen Jones is helping me finish cleaning up all the old stuff that's out there that needs to come out. We got finished with the 22 audits, so now we are just cleaning that up so that we can go forward. And so the report that you see is an actual report of what it is. There's tables in there that shouldn't be, there's deposits in there that shouldn't be, they're duplicates. We have to get those cleaned up so there is a true financial statement.
I had a question.
That has nothing to do with providing a check registry
We're just talking about the bills here.
and finance reports. That's, you know, you usually skip the finance reports and do the bills. You know, it's supposed to be the finance reports, and then we'll approve that, or vote on that.
I don't see that in any of the minutes, so, I mean, however you guys want to go forward with it, that's up to you.
I'll check with the other towns and see what they do going forward.
Well, I'm
And let
giving
you
you an
know.
example.
But I will make a motion to
Many
pay the
times.
bills.
Okay, but before we do that, I have a question about the bills. I'd like to know what this $7,500 for the ARPA is.
That is where we are replacing $7,500 that the town of, well, I can't say the town of Otter Creek. Someone purchased for Panini Engineering to come out and do a survey to write the grant for our broadband. I see no minutes where it was approved. I see no minutes where it was talked about. When I called them, first of all, Colin Jones asked me what was it about? I had no clue. I couldn't find anything. Melissa with Fred Fox came to set our boxes up for the grants that are fixing to take off. She wanted to know what it was for as well. So I finally found out who the check was made to, and I called them. They said this was services to help to see how the fiber optic was going to lay out for the town, and then that we would take that and apply for our fiber optic grant. Okay, so there were purchases that for this engineering firm to, and we were no guarantee that we were going to get the fiber optic grant.
Do we get that money back?
No, we do not get it back. It was for services, and so we should have, if we were going to do that, since we did that, it does not come out of a grant money. That is needed to come out of operating. So we're taking them out of operating and putting them back into ARPA where it belongs. We
So it
can
wasn't
use the
voted on
ARPA
or
grant for
discussed?
our broadband, but only if it was an active grant. We didn't have a grant at the time that we took this money out of there.
Okay. Teresa had asked you questions.
So it wasn't voted on or discussed
I
at
can't
all?
find no meetings, I can find nothing. I can find where Fred Fox came in and talked about, once it was, to apply for it, we voted, yes, Fred Fox could apply for it for us, but nothing was ever mentioned about this, this purchase.
Did he ever say that this was a requirement?
No, it's not, it wasn't a requirement, it just said, when I spoke to Steve at Panini Engineer, he made the comment that Fred Fox, Russell Meeks, and him had met several times to go over this. There again, I searched numerous years and every month of the meetings, and I didn't see anything that was mentioned about it. So we purchased this to,
So it's
help
like
us apply for the
throwing
grant, but
money
there
into
was,
the wind, throwing money into the trash.
What
Okay.
was the date of the check?
the date,
Oh, yeah,
December of 21. And I went back and I looked at all the notes, I mean, everything, every year from 19, 20, 21, 22. I see nothing
and it was
about
made out to,
Panini Engineering. Do you remember talking about this or meeting with them?
Was that in the financial ledgers?
should be.
Should
It
have
was.
been.
They had to do an engineering study before they would even give us the grant. And that's what that was for,
Okay, but,
because they wanted all of these lines underground
okay, that's,
and not on a pole. And if you'll recall, when Mr. Fox was here, he brought that up, that these lines had to be engineered, how they was gonna do it.
right, but that's part of our grant. That's part of our $1.4 million grant,
He told
not for
us-
our two.
And that
He
kind
told
of
us
study
that we could-
voted on.
We had to do that engineering study before they would give us the money, and that we could use that money in that fund to pay for that engineering
Okay,
study.
but we had no,
Did the council vote on that?
The council voted on
Oh,
it,
well,
yes.
I saw nothing in the meeting, no minutes about it, nothing.
There's no minutes, there's no
No.
vote registry, there's no.
So,
requirement.
and nothing was in the ARPA because the ARPA had never been put in the financials. So no one saw that it came out. So there again, what's, okay, so you had a meeting, town hall meeting, and it was voted and the public heard?
In the meeting, yes.
In what month? Because I can't find it in the minutes where you guys approved it.
I can't recall for sure just what month it was.
I mean, I can do the check and Steve Panini sent me the information. But he said that it was not guaranteed that we would get it. It was just to help us get the proper active grant. And it is non-refundable.
Did you ask Mr. Fox about it?
Yeah, I sure did. Mr. Fox said, Russell knew about it. That's all he could say. Even Melissa didn't know anything about it.
Let's see if we can get a little more explanation from him about this. So you'll know what's going on with it.
Well, I do know what's
You
going
do
on.
know that. That's his explanation.
Yes, that, and it was brought to my attention when first Linda with Palin Jones asked me about it, and then Melissa from Fox Enterprises asked me about it.
So you-
There was
you-
nothing in this office, I had to call them and get everything.
You did a lot, I can't be specific on that unless I reference some dates and other things.
But you do agree that it should have been voted on, $7,500 been spent.
Well, everyone agrees it should be voted on, yes.
Not everybody.
Okay.
All right, that was my only questions about the bills.
So I'll reaffirm my motion to pay the bills.
All right, do I hear a second to pay the bills? Does anyone want to make a second to pay the bills?
I'll second the motion to pay the bills.
All right, all in
But I
favor?
would kind of really like to have
Aye.
more information.
Opposed?
It had to be paid.
Okay, pay the bills. All right, the next thing is to approve the minutes from the October 10th meeting.
Okay, the problem there is with that is, the reason I think we should have our recording back here is there's one, the error here, whenever we voted on, the minutes of last time. You have down here that Russell Meeks and Don Sereno opposed that. That's not true. That is not true. No,
I didn't do
you're
the
not gonna
minutes.
take my word.
No, I'm just telling you, I didn't do the minutes, so.
Okay, I understand. That's why I think we should have recording, so you can, yes, he's right. Another one, when we were reviewing to pay the bills, you have here opposed Russell Meeks and Don Severino. I voted yes on that. I didn't oppose it. Right here in the meeting, in the packet, it says I opposed it. Hey, here when we're voting on the grant for Mid-Tower and Fox, we took a vote. It was unanimous. But here, it has opposed Russell Meeks and Don Severino. That did not happen. We both voted for that. And there's, yes, that's what I have to say about that. It's just it's not accurate.
Okay.
It's not accurate. And minutes are supposed to be accurate. That's the main thing.
That's why we're
And I can
discussing it.
understand the difficulty that she has trying to remember all this and take the notes. That's why we should have a recorder here so she can, when she's doing the dictation, she has something to go on other than her memory.
Then, well, since Russell's recording and he has to give us a copy. We'll
Yeah,
get
but
it.
see, since he's recording it personally,
Next
he
subject.
can turn it on and off when he wants. We want one here that is continuous the whole meeting.
Okay.
Does that sound reasonable?
Duly noted. Next.
Okay, so we'll review that and bring that back at the next meeting.
Thank you.
All right. Now we have our special guest from Helen Jones to talk about the findings from the 2021-2022 audit.
Where should I stand?
This one.
Right there, almost.
Okay. So I'm gonna go over the financial statements for the year September 30th, 2022. So obviously this is not, immediately right now, financial statements, it takes a time for us to go and review them and year-end close out and such. So, this was just over a year ago now, and the year that ended on that date. In our independent auditors report, we said that we've audited the financial statements of the town of Otter Creek for that year, and then in our opinion, the financial statements are accurately presented. And then it says, basis for our opinion is that we conducted our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and governmental auditing standards. Page 10 of the report has management's discussion and analysis. This is a brief summary of the financials. If someone wants to read that, it's 4 pages. It gives a brief summary of what's going on with the financials of the town. On page 17 of the report is the balance sheet for the governmental fund. It shows that you have cash and investments of $269,000 for the year. You had liabilities of $11,000, and the net between those two, which is your fund balance, is $257,000 of net worth. A portion of that is assigned for ARPA of $58,000, and then we have your unassigned balance of $198,000, which represents approximately 2.2 months of operating expenditures. So if no money came in, you could operate for about 2 months without having anything to replenish it. On page 18 of the report, we have our statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. It's like a profit and loss also for the governmental fund for the year. It shows that your total revenues were $121,000, and your expenditures for general government were $92,000, and public safety were $12,000, bringing total expenditures to $105,000. You also had other financing uses of $8,000. Your net change is $25,000 increase. That brought your net worth from $232,000 up to the $257,000 you previously talked about. On page 20, we have our statement of net position for your water utility. You have cash of $35,000, meter deposits of $6,000, and then you have your plants and improvements for fixed assets, long-term, $1.4 million, and the depreciation against those assets, which show how much has been used up over time, of $868,000. The net value of those is $565,000 for the year. Total of all assets is $607,000. For liabilities, you have your customer deposits of $9,500, and the net between those is $607,000. So your assets minus your liabilities is your net position or net worth for the year. $565,000 is invested or tied up in your assets, so that can't be accessed. Whereas you have unrestricted net position, which is funds that can be accessed, of $33,000. On page 21, we have the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in net position for the water utility. It shows that you have your water sales of $30,000 for the year, and your operating expenses were $47,000 for the year. So you had an operating loss of $17,000. I will note that even though you had an operating loss, you did have a cash surplus, which we'll talk about on the statement of cash flows, but the loss is primarily from depreciation. You had $24,000 of depreciation, which is a non-cash expense that shows how much your assets are being used up each year. So what this is basically showing is that if you continue on your current trend, you won't be generating enough reserves to be able to replace your infrastructure over time, but you are operating profitably on a cash basis. So if we look at the statement of cash flows on the next page, you had a net increase in cash of $7,000 for the year, brought your cash balance from $35,000 to $43,000 for the year. Now, like I said, you know, some of that may not be an issue, running a deficit in that fund, if you do have grant funds to help replenish your capital improvements. So if you get grants to like replace your water tower or water lines, it may be a non-issue, but it's always good to have money in reserve for that, to be safe. Okay. On page 23, it starts the section of the notes to the financial statements. All those financial statements, you know, they have the numbers, and this kind of explains the why and the accounting policies and procedures and other things behind those numbers. I'm not going to go into it in detail, but I will hit one of the highlights. On page 33, we have our capital assets note. It shows that in your governmental fund, you have $150,000 of assets, which is primarily buildings. And then you also have some equipment and vehicles. All of those have exceeded their useful lives, so you're being frugal and using what you have. But I just wanted to point out that all those have been fully depreciated out. And then for your water utility, you had $1.4 million in assets, and then that $868,000 of depreciation against that, which shows that those assets are 61% depreciated. So that means those assets are about 61% used up based on our estimated useful lives for them. Moving on, we'll go to page 4. This is our report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance as required by government auditing standards. On internal controls over financial reporting, we do have a finding in here. This one is a standard finding that we have for all small governments who do not have a CPA on staff. It basically says that you don't have staff who are capable of preparing financial statements. But then we also have your response in here, which says that you have a competent bookkeeper who is capable of preparing records, and that it wouldn't be a justifiable expense to pay another CPA to prepare your financial statements outside of the auditor. In the compliance section, we didn't have any other issues there. And then you have our management letter, which is where we lay out any findings or issues that we have during our audit. First section is on our prior year findings. We had 2 findings from the prior year that we repeated in the current year. The first finding was on bank statement reconciliations not being completed on time and accurately. The second finding was on CDBG grant funds, which were not being recorded in a separate and isolated way, and that issue had not been corrected with some of the grant funds, so we'd like to see those separated out well. And then next we have our current year findings. The first one is regarding record keeping deficiencies. We noted, multiple occasions where amounts were posted to incorrect accounts and not coded correctly. And also, we were several instances where we requested records and it took a long time to get those because they weren't readily accessible and had to be located. So that's the first finding. The second one is on cutoff procedures. Cutoff is essentially at year end, you have to decide what belongs in the year and what doesn't belong in the year. And we noted that there wasn't sufficient cutoff procedures to determine what belonged in the year and what did not. For example, if you paid something in October, your year ended in September, sometimes that payment might have been for services in September. So we would need a listing to know kind of, hey, this belonged in this year, to kind of accurately have our years separated in our financial statements. On our third finding, we have customer utility deposits. We found that the listing that we had for deposits did not match what was in the bank account for those deposits. We recommend that those be reconciled and looked at more carefully to determine what might have caused those variances and what your actual liability is for those utility deposits that you're holding for your customers. And then the rest of this letter, it also goes on to where we do a financial emergency analysis to determine if the town was in a state of financial emergency, which we didn't determine, we didn't see that. But we did also do a financial condition assessment as required by rules of the Auditor General. And this is something that we've been tracking for a while, that the enterprise fund, has been running a loss, like I previously described. Obviously that's not a good condition to be in long-term, because you're not going to set aside enough capital to further fund your, capital improvements in the future outside of having to go get grants. So we continued that analysis to say that, you did have some deteriorating financial conditions there. And that concludes my presentation. You guys have any other questions for me?
Are we gonna receive one of the copies of that? Usually they come along with
Yeah,
a report.
I thought, Melinda, were you gonna, you can print, you guys do have electronic copies? You guys can print off copies as many as you want?
She gave me a draft, so if you can, you guys
Is
can,
it sheets in the file?
no, she said you guys would, she asked me how many books.
Oh, okay.
And so, and that's okay, I can, I just need
Yep.
to, make sure you guys, is it in the share file?
Yeah, I'll make sure that it's in there if it's not already.
Okay, and then I can download it.
Yep.
And I'll go ahead and print the copies. I have the draft in our book, so I mean,
Okay.
But can you get it electronically, Don?
Pardon?
Can you get it electronically? You okay with that?
I can, but that's really handy to
Yeah,
review.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that.
But I'm just
that way you-
curious if
that
it
way
was
you can get it right
forthcoming or
away.
not.
That's
Yeah, yeah.
That way you can get it right away is what I'm saying.
so-
I'd like to have a paper copy.
We've been using Powell and Jones for quite a few years. Been pretty happy with it. They seem very, very thorough, and of course, what you do. I was just curious if in these reports, is there any evidence of corruption or other irregularities that may have occurred? I mean, yes or no, or however you want to answer it.
Yeah, so here's what I'd say about that. Our job as the auditors is to determine whether the financial statements are accurately presented. We're not necessarily required to catch every instance of fraud. Fraud that does amount to, significant or substantial fraud, that meets our levels of materiality, that's something that we would disclose to you. We didn't find any in our audit report for this year. But if something did come to light, we would let you know. We'd be required to let you know if you found something that was obvious.
Thank you.
But obviously, from the findings, you can see that there is some issues with record keeping and some other things which there is the potential that smaller stuff could have happened, but we're not necessarily required to catch the little bitty stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time, sir.
So.
Anybody else have any questions from the audience about that?
Can you clarify the process this year versus the previous year working with the administration? Because you did work with the new administration for this year, but this year wasn't under that new administration. That was the previous administration, to clarify that.
Yeah.
Was this process smoother? Was it the same? Was it more difficult?
So what I'd say is that, a part of that, you've seen that record keeping finding that is a new finding this year. I think that kind of sums it up. There was definitely difficulties in obtaining some records and some issues like with that. Maybe things weren't, like we ran into some stuff wasn't properly posted that had to be kind of cleaned up after the fact. So, in that regard, I guess you could say that there was some more difficulties, but we hope that that's just, a transitional issue.
And to follow up off of what Don asked you about corruption, would you agree or disagree? There's many ways to sneak corruption in an audit process. If you're given incorrect data, you are only basing everything based on the data that you receive. And you can't, there's a lot of ways to actually make that look clean, even if it's not.
Well, you could say that, nobody's ever, I guess, let me think about how to say this.
Well, you work with the information that you receive.
Well,
if you receive
of course.
faulty information,
Yes.
you take that as this is correct information, and you work with that information.
Well, we're required to keep a level of skepticism with what we do, and that the professional skepticism is what that's called. So if we do see things that seem out of place, we inquire about it and we try to figure out what's going on. You know, there is, you know, like, you know, there is a certain level, like I was talking about with materiality, you know, like.
Thresholds.
Yeah, there's thresholds, you know, so, you know, if there's something that, you know, small that came up, if we saw something that would came up, we would still bring it up, you know, hey, what happened with this? But, you know, we can't, you know, our job is not to, you know, to determine every little itty bitty thing. But, you know, there is some, you know, I do get what I'm given, and there's only so much you can do with what you're given, you know, and, you know, but we think we still were able to provide, you know, at least assurance on our material, within a material level for this year's audit, that there was nothing out of the ordinary. Like I said, but there could be some small things in there that happened, and there's also, you know, there's certain things that, you know, it's impossible for us to catch. You know, if you had intense collusion and things like that, you know, there's multiple people working together. There are certain limits to what we are able to do.
Right. And your professional opinion, which